Good afternoon, all of you. All right. Okay, so yesterday we ended with the talk on one part of the story, which was still uh, the talk on the agriculture part of it. I think the services part was left over, the second half of it. So we'll pick it up from there today. And once we get over with it, I think it shouldn't take us very long. Then I'll teach you the role of public sector and private sector, and then we take it up from there. Before I take you into that, just one thing I wanted you to notice. If you could open up your syllabus, please. Uh, the pre-liberalization era. I'm just making you mark what all I have covered with you at the moment, so that you will have clarity on what part of syllabus has been covered in which manner. All right. After I finish every topic, I will be doing that with you. Whatever I have taught you till now, whatever I have taught you till now, I'm giving you 15 days to revise. I'll put it on the group also today. I'm giving you 15 days to revise, and we will put you on a test sometimes around 3rd week September. I'd initially thought I'll put you on a test next week, but I thought that will be a little too soon for some of you who might have joined later, or who might have joined but joined later. So all those things happen. So in that case, we will put you on a test in 3rd week of September. No, my other intention is, because I'm a little occupied before that, creating videos and all for mains test series people. कुछ वीडियोस मैं आपसे शेयर कर लेता हूं, जैसे इन्फ्लेशन वाला कर लिया था. एक और वीडियो मैंने अभी कल रिलीज किया है, लेकिन वो आपसे शेयर इसलिए नहीं किया बिकॉज वो आपके लिए थोड़ा प्री मैच्योर है. आई एम डिस्कसिंग टू मेनी थिंग्स इन इट, बट इफ यू हैव डन योर जीएस entirely already completed it, then the second video also, what I have done is I have discussed many things on topics that you will find useful. So you can also look into that. But otherwise, I'll keep sharing with you as time goes. So sometimes in 3rd week September, presumably around 17th, 18th September, I will be putting you on the test. Like, I'm not fixing a date right now, I'll let you know. But I'll be putting you on a test, and we will conduct the test as a 1-hour test. I'll not be conducting a huge 2-hour, 3-hour thing. We'll conduct the test as a 1-hour test, in which I'll ask you to write answers. All right? And mostly I'll not punish you with a length of answer, but mostly the knowledge part, that whether you know or not. And we will try keeping it in a manner where we don't disturb our class. All right, like class को compromise ना करना पड़े, test इस तरह से रखने की कोशिश करेंगे. All right, so we'll keep it like that. I'll give you the details. Give me some time. I have it framed in my mind, but right now I'm not discussing it because it's a little early. It's just 31st August at the moment. Now, if you look into your syllabus, Indian economy after independence, the pre-liberalization era. One thing that I've covered with you is agriculture, land reforms, land tenure system, that is zamindari, mehalwari, rayatwari. Land tenure system is something that I will cover with you when I am discussing India before 47. All right, so you can keep that this is the only topic I have not yet done with you, land tenure system, a talk on zamindari, rayatwari, mehalwari and all. Then green revolution, capital formation in agriculture and all I did with you. Industry, I will be doing few things with you, but trends in composition and growth is what I did with you when I was doing with you trends of GDP. When I was doing the trends of GDP with you, when I was doing the trends of GDP with you, I was telling you the talk on capital goods industry, consumer goods industry, intermediate goods industry, all those details I was giving you. That is industries, trends and composition. Trend means the linear trend, time series. Composition means the panel idea, that which industry was growing how much. So trends and compositions I was doing with you when I was doing that whole topic. So in case you want to see that, sir, where did we cover trends and composition of industries? So when I was discussing with you the talks on consumer goods, capital goods and so on, that is where we were doing it. Also, when I was giving you reasons for GDP growth, those reasons are applicable on industrial growth. All right, that the reasons were also affecting the industrial growth, like licensing, like public sector performance going down, like say import substitution policies. They are all connected to industries again. That is why I took agriculture completely separately and taught you differently. All right, and then Another part in that, if you see, role of public and private sector, I will be doing with you today. Small scale and cottage industries, I deliberately don't cover with you right now. I will be covering with you in one go, starting from 1947 till today. All right, we will be doing that in India after 91 debate. So role of small scale cottage industry is the part that I have not covered with you at the moment in the industry part. Rest everything what is needed by the syllabus, I have gone through that, and public sector and private sector role I will do today with you. Another thing in that, so if you see below that, national and per capita income, patterns, trends, aggregates, and sectoral composition and changes is what I have covered with you. All right, what is the pattern of that national income growth, per capita income growth, change, sectoral changes that have happened. Yesterday we were talking about sectoral changes, today we will finish it off. And I have discussed two sectoral changes, sectoral points with you. One at the time of 1947, that what did we inherit and why, what were the reasons? We analyzed that how much was the occupational structure, what was the income structure. And the other was right now that we did yesterday about the sectoral composition change, 47, 71 and 91. And then why did it change? What were the reasons? 2 points on agriculture, 2 on industry, 2 on services, creating it like that. All right. So that is about giving you those 250 words, 300 words on each of those topics, that in case they pick up only industry, only agriculture. So remember, when you make your own system or your own thought process, you can pick up the discussion that we did in the first class on sectoral composition at the time of independence. Join it with the sectoral composition discussion I did yesterday, and that combines all the discussion on per capita income growth, sectoral composition growth in India, and evolution thereafter. Another thing they say, so an aggregate composition is total GDP trend, sectoral composition is agriculture, industry, services. While teaching you agriculture, I gave you the trend of agricultural GDP growth, so that is where you can combine it here to understand that, okay, this is the agricultural GDP growth trend. If some data I have not given you, like intermediate goods growth between 1966 to 69, that is because reliable data is missing there. So I did not give you a data. All right, so if I have not given you a data somewhere, it's only because the reliable data has been missing. Otherwise, I would have given you the data if that was present. That's another. Now, other than these, I have not yet covered broad factors determining national income and distribution. I have covered with you broad factors determining national income. That is GDP. You understand that? But I have not covered broad factors determining distribution. I hope you can understand the difference. Broad factors determining national income, we did it over the trends of GDP. That why was GDP growing, what were the reasons, what were the problems. But broad factors determining distribution, I have not covered with you. All right, so keep that in mind. And measures of poverty, etc. This last point, broadly, I have not covered, except for factors determining national income. And the first part, I have not covered. This I deliberately don't cover with you. This comes in the last 2 odd classes I do. Contribution of Vakil, Gadgil, Rao, because they are very easy to finish once we are in synchronization with each other. So I will repeat kar दूं. MSME, I did not cover with you because I want to cover it from 47 till now at one go. Inequality, poverty in India, I did not cover, last topic, because I want to cover it from beginning till here at one go. And I did not cover another point, that was Vakil, Gadgil and Rao, again because that is easier when we are better known to each other. Few more things I will go into gradually when I test you in the test series. All right, I again repeat, your course I have developed in a manner where everything, maybe the 95% things that they ask in the paper and they can probably ask, is what I try covering in the 110, 112 classes that we will have from August till, say, January. First week January, kind of. That's what I'm trying to achieve. And apart from that, the rest 5-7% which are arcane, जिनके आने के chances पता नहीं कैसे हैं, क्यों पूछ लेते हैं ऐसी बातें, या कुछ चीजें जो data based हैं बिल्कुल. For example, giving you individual questions on Mitra scheme of the government, giving you individual scheme on particular, say, ONDC scheme of the government, Open Network Digital Commerce, kind of a thing. These things I do in the test series. Then what I do is I pick up the test series and start picking up on these. Or say covering appendix of Salvatore. Now they have never touched appendix of Salvatore as yet, but who knows if they do. So I pick up 3-4 important appendices of Salvatore and ask you questions from there in the test series, and then train you how to write those answers. In the process, training you on the subject also. You understand that? So please keep it in mind that your training will continue with the test series also. So whether you clear prelims, not clear prelims, whether you have revised, not revised, you will be attending the test series discussions, whether online or offline. In test series, I am very flexible. I allow even offline people to attend it online. Because I know some of you might finish your courses, go back home, you may not be here. So I am fully flexible there. Even offline people can attend the test series online, but you will have to pick one mode. Like you can't hip hop. All right, कि आज तो मैं ऑफलाइन मूड में हूँ, कल मैं ऑनलाइन मूड में आ जाऊंगा. तो जनरली वो भी कोशिश करता हूँ मैं कि आपको मिल जाए एक्सेसिबिलिटी, बट नॉर्मली फॉर द सेक ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी. But otherwise, I remain flexible there. But do make sure that test series videos are seen, because there will be around at least 14 to 15 videos on test series. That is 35-40 hours of class. And I believe that my children are listening to me there, doing that test series part, and those questions. So then my completion is like that. Like they have never asked us first welfare theorem, second welfare theorem. So when I teach you micro here, I don't do first welfare theorem, second welfare theorem with you in the classroom. But through the test series, I cover it up. That in case they ask you, then we should be prepared for it. You understand? That's just giving you one example. That those kind of things I do. So keep it like that. So this is what we have done at the moment. We'll cover up from here today. And when I'll begin with micro today, just pointing it to you, when I'll begin with micro today, I will be beginning with the cardinal utility theory. Now, here UPSC becomes a little dicey. I had another word in my mind, but that I won't speak. So, I'll tell you why they become dicey. They don't mention, if you read the syllabus, they say Marshallian and Walrasian approaches to price determination, alternative distribution theories, market structure, modern welfare criteria. They have never mentioned utility here. Price determination doesn't necessarily mean utility has to be understood, but you look at the past year papers and they have asked us questions on consumer equilibrium in cardinal utility. They have asked us questions on marginal utility of money elasticity. They have asked us questions on indifference curve, including income effect and substitution effect. They have asked us questions from labor market and indifference curve. And they have even asked us questions from general equilibrium solutions, not the numericals, but the theories. And they don't mention it here. So what I do while teaching you, I am deliberately saying all this, because sometimes it will come to your mind that it's not mentioned in the syllabus. Why is this old man doing all these things? Look at the past year papers and you will see why is the old man doing all those things. Because sometimes they have not mentioned it in the syllabus, but they put it in the paper. Now look at it. Production, they say market structure, monopolistic competition, duopoly, oligopoly. But when you come to the question paper, they have asked us questions from monopoly, and they have asked us questions from price discrimination in monopoly. They have asked us questions from supply curve derivation in perfect competition. So they expect us to know that it means. They have asked us questions even from expansion paths and isoquants and isocosts. So I rely on what they have asked. I believe that what they ask us is revealed preference. What they mention here is only preference. And I always trust revealed preference more than preference. What we reveal is what we truly imply. So अभी आपके पहले जो GS क्लास में वहाँ भी वही कह रहा था. अगर मैं आपसे प्यार करता हूँ तो आपके आंसर्स करूँगा, क्लास में टाइम से आने की कोशिश करूँगा, पढ़ाऊँगा दम लगा के कि आप सब कुछ ठीक से समझ जाओ. ये बोलना तो बड़ा आसान है ना कि मैं तुम्हें बहुत प्यार करता हूँ, तुम्हारे लिए चांद लेके आ जाऊँगा. कैसे? कहाँ से लाओगे चांद भाई? बेफालतू की बात. तो यही आपको कह रहा हूँ कि आप भी अपनी पढ़ाई का तरीका वही रखिए. दैट वर्क ऑन एक्शन. और यूपीएससी का भी वही सोचिए कि यूपीएससी ने एक्शन क्या लिया, पूछे क्या मुझे. बिकॉज जब टॉपर्स बोलते हैं ना, आई हैड one पेज ऑन एवरीथिंग रिटन इन द सिलेबस, आई वुड लव टू नो व्हाट वाज दैट one पेज. बिकॉज व्हेन यू लिसन टू दोस टॉपर्स टॉक, और ये क्या होता है पता है, प्रथा बन जाती है. एक आदमी ने बोला, दूसरे ने सुना, उसने शुरू से एम्बिशन पाला है, जिस दिन मैं क्वालिफाई करूंगा ऐसा कुछ बोलूंगा. फिर आप भी कभी कर देंगे, बन गए. आई हैड one पेज ऑन एवरी पार्ट ऑफ द सिलेबस. इमेजिन इफ द पार्ट ऑफ द सिलेबस इज ओलिगोपोली, How do you confine it in one page if you have to do pure Batra, differentiated Batra, Batra with price leadership, Kurno, differentiated Kurno, Kurno with quantity leadership, Sweezy's model? इतने कोई एक पेज पे ला दो मुझे, मैं मान जाऊंगा कि कुछ चमत्कारी सिस्टम है ऐसा जो एक पेज में एक लाइन को ला सकता है सिलेबस पे. ये बातें फैशनेबल लगती हैं बोलने में. सिलेबस को समझना जरूरी है, बट ऑलवेज देयर हैज टू बी अ कॉम्बिनेशन बिटवीन व्हाट इज द सिलेबस and what are the past year questions indicating. So yesterday, if a past year question is asking me about isoquant or indifference curves, then even if I'm discussing the next topic, I have to be careful that what else can be asked from here which has not yet been asked. Now we'll start with micro from today, no doubt, and I take around 22-23 classes in micro. All right, because micro and macro, according to me, are foundations on which we can build the rest of economics. So my request to you also is that make sure that micro is done to the best of your ability and macro is done to the best of your ability, all right, and finish it off as good as possible. Normally you would see me that I come here and I'm here 15-20 minutes before your class also. It is to allow you to come and ask your doubts. If I get stuck up somewhere, it's a different issue. But normally I keep 15-20 minutes before your class, and after your class, if my next class is not there, then whatever time, but next class is there also, then I take half an hour, 40 minutes to solve your doubts. So micro and macro, just do it like that. One more request I'll have, remain very attentive when we are discussing things in the classroom. I'm sure you are, but just reminding you, because that will save a lot of your time at home. If you have listened to things properly in the classroom, I'm not passing any comment. Don't take me negatively. But you know, many times I see questions asked on the group, and believe me, I don't say it for saying it. I do go through all messages on the group. Sometimes your jokes, etc. too. I mean, every time. You know, आप लोग संदीप सर को मेरे TIA बुला रहे थे, वो भी मैं देख रहा था. You know, but anyways, coming back to my point. तो कभी कभी मुझे वो क्वेश्चंस नजर आते हैं जो मैं ऑलरेडी तुम्हें क्लास में काफी डिटेल में बता चुका होता हूं. तो या तो तुम क्लास में नहीं सुन पाए मुझे, या वीडियो देखते हुए मैं कुछ और बोलता हूं. तो दोनों में से एक ही बात हो सकती है. बिकॉज वो क्वेश्चन तुम्हें अगर स्ट्राइक कर रहे हैं तो मुझे थोड़ी चिंता होती है, दैट देन इट टेल्स मी दैट मे बी द कंसंट्रेशन लेवल वाज नॉट कंप्लीट व्हेन यू वर लिसनिंग टू मी. All right, so just try doing that, because the more we go into economics now, ये शुरू में 8-10 classes, 12 classes मैं भी मान के चलता हूँ, you are getting to know me, I'm getting to know you. Gradually I'll start upgrading the level, which I have already started doing in last couple of classes. So you will also have to upgrade yourself that, okay, these are the 2.5 hours where I'll make sure I'm done as much as possible. One last but not the least request, if you are actually serious about becoming an IAS officer or reaching this level in life, then festivals can wait, my work cannot. Make it a dictum and you will see that success will follow. You know, ये एक रूल बना लो लाइफ में. मुझे राखी के दिन छुट्टी चाहिए, होली के दिन छुट्टी चाहिए, ईद के दिन छुट्टी चाहिए, दिवाली, दशहरा में तो मुझे कभी समझ नहीं आता क्यों छुट्टी करते कि रावण मर गया, हम सब दुखी हो जाते हैं, हम सारे रिश्तेदार घर के कोई चले गए आज. So thank you for getting it. You know, and then we get upset that, oh my God, Ravan is dead today, I'm missing my family member. You know, but we go on leave every day. If we will go on, and that's I can't help it. Like Rakhi वगैरह में तो फिर भी आपकी क्लास ले सकता हूँ क्योंकि it's kind of not that huge. On Dashera, on Diwali, it's not possible to give you a leave. So I already give you a leave Saturday and Sunday. Don't look for a third day unnecessarily. Because whenever a third day will arise, I will bring up the Saturday part. You know, the program has been designed in that manner that I have to take 110, 112 classes, and I will try my best. I'm a human, so I cannot give you a 100% guarantee, but I'll try my best that those 110 classes are all done by the time we reach sometimes first week of January. All right, I'll try doing it by end December, but let's keep 7 days more. So first week January, so that I can set you free, and then the economic services people can be set free by 30th January, and so on. So that is what we'll plan across then. तो छुट्टियां जनरली आज मैं देख रहा था कोई आप अंकित दुखी हो रहे थे राखी की छुट्टी को लेकर. मत लो छुट्टी इतनी ज़्यादा. जो ज़्यादा छुट्टी लेते हैं वो उनके लिए तरक्की मुश्किल रहता है, एज लॉन्ग एज वो पॉलिटिक्स में ना हो. तो वहाँ बस एक छुट्टी काम आती है, बाकी जगह छुट्टी काम नहीं आती ज़्यादा. Anyways, let's see this. मैं आपको बताता हूँ, मैं खुद को messages भी देता हूँ ऐसे ही. I was not very well yesterday. I'm not doing very well today also. The throat is killing. But what I did was, I bring my driver here and then I send him back home. You know? तो वो होता है burning the bridge. कि वो जब आते हैं उनको बोलता हूँ तुम घर चले जाओ. इसका मतलब मुझे तो यही रहना है कि वो तो गए 2 घंटे दूर, 1 घंटे पे है मेरा घर, तो अगर वो चले जाएंगे वापस भी आएंगे तो 1 घंटा लगेगा. तो मैंने खुद के माइंड को मैसेज दे दिया कि भाई साहब आप बीमार होंगे, थके हुए होंगे, लेकिन अब तो वो चला गया, तो आपको यहीं रह के काम करना है. तो ओला मंगा के वो भी तकलीफ है, ठीक है. नहीं नहीं, वो भी तकलीफ है. वो तकलीफ है कि अपनी गाड़ी के अलावा किसी और की गाड़ी में जाऊंगा तो वहां भी परेशान रहूंगा. जब भी तुम खुद को मैसेज दोगे करेक्ट काम करने का, आपका माइंड पक्का वो मैसेज लेगा. ये मैं आपके कोच के हिसाब से आपको बोल रहा हूं. इट्स व्हाट मैसेज यू गिव योर माइंड दैट व्हाट इट वांट्स टू डू, योर माइंड विल टेक दैट मैसेज. सो कीप गिविंग योर माइंड मैसेज टू वर्क एंड इट विल वर्क. एक लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट बात कहूंगा. कभी कभी आप लोग बोलते हैं, या ये जीएस में भी बोलते हैं लोग, आप भी ऑप्शनल के भी बच्चे बोलते हैं, वो दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स के थे इसीलिए उनको सक्सेस मिल गया, वो आईआईटी के थे इसीलिए सक्सेस मिल गया. पहले सोचो वो वहां क्यों थे. इंपॉर्टेंट बात वो है, वहां पहुंचने के लिए भी तो कुछ हार्ड वर्क किए होंगे. तुम वही हार्ड वर्क कर लो, अगर वहां से नहीं भी हो तो भी सक्सेस हो सकता है. सक्सेस लाइज इन द हैबिट ऑफ डूइंग हार्ड वर्क. सक्सेस डजंट लाई इन एन इंस्टीट्यूशन. मैंने एक से एक निकम्मे देखे दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स में, जो वहां पहुंच के रिवील हुए. पहुंच तो गए वहां तक, फिर 42%, 41% फेलियर, ये वहां नजर आना शुरू हुआ. Because they could not adjust to the new grind. Because if there is someone among you sitting from DSE, you would know the grind that DSE puts you in the first couple of weeks or so. वो grind से नहीं adjust कर पाए तो नहीं पास किए. वो होता है सक्सेस की आदत नहीं होना. जिनको आदत होती है वो झक मारते हैं, जैसे अभी आप लोग कर रहे हो, कुछ लोग जीएस भी कर रहे हो, ऑप्शनल भी कर रहे हो, 5-6 घंटे की पढ़ाई है, फिर घर जाके भी पढ़ना है. हम जैसे आके लेक्चर भी दे रहे हैं, देखो अभी 20 मिनट से दे रहा हूँ, 15 मिनट से तुम्हें लेक्चर सब सुनना है, लेकिन फिर भी तुम उस ग्राइंड में लगे हुए हो. यू हैव टेकन द चैलेंज रादर देन शाइंग अवे फ्रॉम इट, एंड दैट इज व्हाट लाइज इन बिहाइंड सक्सेस. दैट वेदर आई एम विलिंग टू एक्सेप्ट द चैलेंज, या मैं ओला लेके निकलने के मूड में लग जाऊं. वही डिसाइड करता है कि क्या मैं भूल जाऊं कि गाड़ी है, या सोच लूं कि ओला तो है ही. जो ओला लेते हैं फिर ओले पड़ते हैं उन पर. ऑलराइट, लेट्स सी दिस देन. तो कल से शुरू करते हैं फिर जहां कल रुके थे. या दे विल इंक्लूड द मैथमेटिकल पार्ट्स ऑल्सो. नो, यू शुड नॉट वरी एट ऑल विकास. The reasons for industries we did, Aarti, when we did reasons for GDP. All right, we did it like that. Okay, if the notes are not uploaded online, I'll see to it they're uploaded by today evening. Sandeep sir will get it done, don't worry. Perfect, Amit. You do have game theory, don't worry, even that will be done, Bhargavi. They have asked you questions thrice on game theory, but they have never asked you a tough question. They ask you questions like explain prisoner's dilemma. So that is a gift if you ask me. All right. And एक बात और भी है, that whatever questions I have given you till now, 2 I have not yet discussed, and 3 rather, and 2 more I'll give you this weekend. I will use those questions, I'll keep discussing them with you. One I'll discuss tomorrow, one I'll discuss, in the 2 I'll discuss next week. So I'll keep discussing them with you as we go on with the syllabus. Like if I start teaching you micro, makes no reason that I cannot discuss with you a question on Indian economy. ये तो नहीं हो सकता ना कि आपका माइंड ऐसा प्रोग्राम्ड है कि माइक्रो शुरू हुआ तो आप सब कुछ पीछे वाला भूल गए. किसी के साथ ऐसा होता है तो मुझे बताना, अलग से ले जाऊंगा, इलाज करता हूं मैं. जो ऑनलाइन वाले हैं उन्हें बस एक दिन मेरे पास आना पड़ेगा इस इलाज के लिए, मैं कर दूंगा. लेकिन अब मैं माइक्रो भी पढ़ा रहा हूँ. Even if I'm teaching you micro, I will be discussing questions on Indian economy with you. We will be completing it up. All right, so not a problem at all. Okay, let's see this. So you would have written a heading race yesterday or nothing? Right, perfect. So you please take it down. This is about share of industries remained more due to remained low due to following reasons. You write first, we are discussing why industrial share in GDP remained lesser. all right, in this time period in occupational structure. You write there, first point, rigid labor laws in India, rigid labor laws in India, especially after 1970s, especially after 1970s, discouraged large employment creation, large employment creation, full stop. It was further discouraged by cheaper credit available under various government schemes for the industrialists. Okay, I'll tell you what was the case. We had an Industrial Disputes Act, then we had the Trade Union Act, then we had the Apprenticeship Act, and then we had the Contract Labor Act. So all these acts were there, which would put a lot of restriction on the industrialist. All right, that you cannot remove a worker, you will have to pay XYZ amount of money to the worker, even if the worker is not reporting at work. You will have to record your worker's height and weight on a monthly basis. So there were too many compliances, too many restrictions, and that discouraged the industrialists from hiring the workers. In case it comes to your mind, what kind of restrictions? I'll give you a very simple example. Suppose I come to your house and I wash your clothes and I wash your utensils. Example there now. So I'm coming to your house and I wash your clothes, I wash your utensils, maybe I clean your house also. And then one day I come to you and I tell you that I am now under Industrial Disputes Act, so you will have to give me every weekend as a holiday. Apart from that, you will have to give me all national holidays as holiday. Apart from that, you will have to give me holiday as my medical leave. You will also have to sanction casual leave, and then I can take unpaid leaves. Other than that, if you want to remove me, you will have to give me 3 months notice. If you don't give me 3 months notice, you will have to give me 3 months salary. Apart from that, if you want to replace me, you will have to talk to my trade union. And only after my trade union has permitted, you can replace me. What will you do? Next day, go buy a washing machine and a dishwasher. Labor replaced by capital because it became too tedious to continue with the labor. And add to that, you will have to give me above minimum wages. So all that created trouble. As I say, you can make stringent rules, but then those stringent rules will drive people away from actually implementing them. And what did they do? They created that large unorganized sector that we see in India. So we remove the workers from the organized sector and we keep them in the unorganized sector. And then there were multiple labor laws, 144 different types of labor laws in India. That becomes a challenge. Because if you have 144 different types of laws, then obviously the one who can manipulate the law better will win the battle. And as an industrialist, I will always have much better methods of doing it than otherwise. So labor laws started because if I'm an honest industrialist, if I'm a scrupulous person, I will be doubly worried about the compliances and the norms that you are fixing on me. So flexibility in labor law doesn't necessarily mean hire and fire. And I will teach you labor law reforms and I'll clarify it to you. But flexibility in labor law actually means making sure that workers get the flexibility to shift jobs and employers get the flexibility to shift jobs. But we will do a discussion, but 60s and 70s it was missing. And then add to that, if you are giving me an interest subsidy on buying that dishwasher and washing machine I was talking about, then definitely I'll replace you. So this started becoming the norm in India of 1960s and 70s. In fact, quite surprisingly, by 1979, India's steel production industry was more capital intensive than Japan's steel production industry. Ideally, Japanese should have been much more capital intensive than us because they are a capital surplus country and labor deficit. We are a labor surplus country and capital deficit. But by 1979, there was a research done by Professor Sukhmay Chakravarti, and he found that Indian steel production was much more capital intensive than even Japanese steel production. So that is what was happening, where Indian industrialists were shifting more and more towards capital rather than labor. Second point, you write, next. The focus of development was on large scale capital intensive growth. Focus of development was on large scale capital intensive growth, which led to less employment generation in industries. Next, you write, there was lack of development of medium scale enterprises, which further discouraged employment. That has been again a bane of India's development system. We have had a lot of medium scale enterprises absence and a lot of small scale and micro units presence. Like if I go by the Industrial Survey 2021, it was published even in the Economic Survey of 21-22, you would see that we have 6.2 crores MSME in India. This is data for 2022 actually. We don't have the latest data at the moment, but 22 data we have, 21-22 data that is. So 6.2 crore MSME is what India has. I'm talking now you also. And 11.2 crore people are employed in it. Now imagine the ratio is not even 1:2. And supposedly we keep learning that small scale industry creates employment. Understand that? हमें बार बार रटवाते हैं ना, स्मॉल स्केल को बढ़ावा दो, स्मॉल स्केल से एम्प्लॉयमेंट होता है. हमारे यहाँ स्मॉल स्केल की ये हालत है रेशियो में. That we have 6.2 crore MSME in India, employing 11.2 crore people. Why does that happen? It happens because 5.3 crore small scale industries out of 6.2 crore, 5.3 crore small scale industries or MSMEs out of 6.2 crore are micro in nature. So since they are micro industries, some of them are very small industries in rural areas working with a single person. Maybe a carpenter running his shop, or maybe a construction person, a mason working on her shop. Something like that. So it's about one person, 1.5 person. That is how you are there. That is the lacking link that we have. And then of course there is small. And small again covers 75 lakhs. Around that, and then the medium, and medium is 15 lakhs to 20 lakhs. Now this is the real job creating part. If we want jobs to be created, it has to be here. Because these are places which hire 100 workers, 80 workers, 200 workers at one go. So that is the industry we need which will create employment. These industries don't even hire, the small ones also never hire more than 10, 15, 20. And the micro ones would not even hire 1 or 2 or 3 more than that, sometimes even 1. That dominance, now I'm talking 22. Go back to 50s and 60s and 70s and you will realize that we had a lot of cottage industries as they were called, or small industries, but we had huge missing link when it came to the large scale industries. All right, the cottage industries or small industries, but we had a huge missing link when it came to the large scale industries. And that became the trouble factor. You understand that? That became the trouble factor, that how do you now improve from here? So this is one thing to keep in mind, all right, that when we talk about lack of medium scale enterprises in India, due to lack of medium scale enterprises in India, employment issues always remain, all right, in the system. And never blindly tell anyone that develop small scale industry and that is labor intensive and more employment will happen. I can ask you this question and stump you badly. That's why I always tell you that go back to empirical evidence before talking. एक होता है कि हम मान लेते हैं कुछ बातें क्योंकि हमें बचपन से बोल दिया किसी ने, टीचर्स भी मान लेते हैं उन बातों को, टीचर्स भी बोलते रहते हैं और एम्पेरिक्स को कोई नहीं देखता. So if somebody tells me in an interview tomorrow that the small scale industries create employment, my immediate question will be, why is it not happening in India? So then you must know why is it. You know why what comes in? Where does this linger from? कहाँ से ये चिपक गई बात आके? Because during capitalist period, there would be large scale industries and there would be small scale industries like a power loom and a hand loom. So now the small scale industries will hire workers, use less machine, and they will have 50 workers, 60 workers in the factory, and those guys will be doing the work of a 3 machine, 4 machine kind of. But they were still called small scale because the scale itself was measured in terms of investment done. And investment is addition to capital goods. So if scale is in terms of investment done, then if I'm employing 100 workers and I keep say 5 machines, I'm still a small scale. As compared to a company which keeps say 25 workers and uses 20 machines. You understand that? तो वहां से ये बात आई, जो formulation बना, that small scale hires more workers and large scale hires less workers. Fair enough. But imagine now, if I am a large scale industry working on the ground and producing say 1 lakh unit of my product, I will still hire 500 workers. Understand it like that. So it is not that a large scale industry which is capital intensive will not create employment. It will create employment, but the capital intensity is high. And a small scale industry may not necessarily create employment, especially if the small scale industry is too small to create an employment. So that clarity you must have when you discuss these talks, for analysis and policy purposes. All right. No, unfortunately, we don't have any data on that. All right. You look at all those Balrampur sugar mills, they are the medium scale ones. All right, the big, relatively larger sugar mills, shoemakers. All right, they won't be a brand name. Don't look for a brand value there. They won't be a brand name because they are still MSME. All right. One medium scale that comes to my mind is Sri Mahila Grih Udyog, Lijjat Papad. On the basis of investment and turnover. How much is the investment done and what is their turnover? I will teach you all that and then we distinguish accordingly. Yeah. No, that is reflected in what kind of. So if I'm investing 1 crore, how much will I employ? And if I'm investing 100 crore, how much will I employ? That kind of a thing. Yes. So that will decide what kind of employment I am generating. Unfortunately, there is no trend seen in that. All right. Yeah, 21. All right. Now you take further. So this is on industry. You just write one more paragraph. You change the paragraph and write employment in service sector between 1951 to 1971, employment in service sector between 1951 to 1971 was mainly on account of government employment and government employment and self-employed business. After 1971, along with public administration, after 1971, along with public administration, high growth was observed. High growth was observed in banking and finance, post and telegraph, banking and finance, post and telegraph, railway services, and electricity distribution companies. Full stop. However, most of the service sector remained capital intensive, and skill oriented, leading to less absorption of workforce. All right, so this gives us a picture on agricultural occupational structure, industrial occupational structure, service sector occupational structure, with reasons of how agricultural occupational structure was large in the beginning and remained large, why industries had a lesser share, and how services had a share which was not very dominant because of their capital intensive nature. In case they ask you a question in the exam on occupational structure, you can combine all that, and to begin your answer, you can write about India at the time of independence. All right, that is how you should formulate. All right, now you take the next heading, you write role of public sector in India's economic development. Role of public sector in India's economic development in pre-liberalization period. Okay, we'll try understanding few things on these. Now see, we don't have the above 100 labor laws now, Ritik. It's changed under the new Labor Act. It's not yet implemented. You can collect it now, Harsh. There is a question online that one of your friend asks me, that maybe there is a lot of labor force in the unorganized sector in MSMEs which cannot be included in economic survey. No, please understand. Industrial surveys happen covering both organized and unorganized sector. Most of the MSME is unorganized sector. So it is not that survey cannot cover workers in the unorganized sector. It's a detailed survey that takes place. It's called Annual Survey of Indian Industries. And that Annual Survey of Indian Industries gives us the detailed report of how workers are employed anywhere and everywhere, including, say, tuition centers, beauty salons. All those details are there, which are practically the unemployed sector, unorganized sector of India. All right. So never think that unorganized sector workers will not be covered. And another thing that Isha asks me is that, isn't these labor laws implemented for organized sector? then how come the rigid labor laws were barrier in highly unorganized society? Well, they're still a barrier because the real job is created by organized sector. The unorganized jobs are casual in nature. Also remember, even if I'm employing you in the unorganized sector, the rigidity will kick in with respect to compliances I will have to live with, like say the MSME have to live with till today. So even if it is unorganized sector, I will not be giving you a job. Plus remember, the rigidity is also reflected in lack of training, etc. I have not trained my workers, I'm not interested in training them, I'm going to leave them in a couple of years. So all that means that productivity remains low and employment remains low. So again, unorganized sector dominated economies also suffer because of very rigid laws, because the law will be applicable to all. You understand that? So an industrial inspector can visit you at any point of time. The law did not say that we are not for unorganized sector. The law said that we are for everyone. The problem was that it was difficult to implement it in the unorganized sector. So understand it like that. जैसे आपके टीचर जो हैं वो अटेंडेंस नहीं लेते, आपने क्लास बंक कर लिया एक दिन और उसी दिन उन्होंने अटेंडेंस ले लिया, तो आप 100% एब्सेंट प्रूफ होंगे ना फिर तो. ये ज्यादा बड़ा डर होता है एक अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर को प्रिवेल करने में. If there is an unorganized sector, they know that normally the industrial inspector won't come to me. But there can be any particular day on which they can land up. Because it's not that industrial inspectors cannot visit the unorganized enterprises. So understand it in that manner. All right. Now, see, there are, I wish I could have taken you into those details at times. Unfortunately, we have a syllabus to finish. That is why I can't take you into all details. But in India, we cover, because sometimes in newspapers also they give you the wrong idea. We cover annual survey of industries, we cover investment survey, we cover enterprises survey, and we cover survey of service sector. All these are covering all the organized, unorganized, registered, unregistered. So even if you are not registered with me, I have methods to find out about you. Yes, in the process what happens? It depends on whether the survey was conclusive. It depends on how many people could be covered under survey. So the quality of data is not 100% correct, but it doesn't mean that, like sometimes I see it's written in the newspaper, we know nothing about our unorganized sector. They know nothing about how survey is done in India when they write this. And unfortunately, some of the good names are writing it. Survey is conducted in India in a very detailed manner. Unfortunately, it's not been happening for last 3-4 years. But otherwise, it happens in a very detailed manner, getting a lot of detailed results that we otherwise don't have, or we cannot get. So never have the notion that we have no idea about our unorganized sector. We have idea about our unorganized sector, but imagine unorganized sector can change on a very frequent basis. So you can have an idea about, say, I am a tuition teacher who takes home tuition. Based on my consumption, you can have an idea on my income. Please understand that. But you cannot find out my income exactly and accurately because my consumption may not be an accurate reflection of my income. And that is where extrapolation comes in as a statistical tool. Again, we are trained, when we are trained, कभी-कभी आपको क्या कहा जाता है? Organized sector is measured, and then as a proportion, unorganized sector share is taken. As a proportion is such a loose term. In statistics, we call it intrapolation and extrapolation. ये statistical tool है. तो एक्स्ट्रापोलेट करने को ऐसे लेमेनिस्क नहीं दिखाना चाहिए कि अच्छा हमने ले लिया, अच्छा 100 ऑर्गेनाइज्ड में है, चलो +80 डाल देते हैं अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड. ऐसे नहीं होता. प्रॉपर रिसर्च करके पता किया जाता है व्हाट प्रोपोर्शन इज ऑर्गेनाइज्ड टू अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड इन ईच सेक्टर, हाउ आर दे डिवाइडेड, वेयर आर दे लोकेटेड, एंड देन एक्स्ट्रापोलेशन इज डन दैट ओके, इफ दीज मेनी देन दिस मेनी. इट्स कॉल्ड अ सैम्पलिंग डिवाइस. इट्स एन एक्सरसाइज इंटायरली इन स्टैटिस्टिक्स. तो ये सारी चीजें होती हैं. ऐसा नहीं कि आंख बंद करके चल रहा है, बस देश में कुछ भी कहा जा रहा है, कोई कुछ भी नंबर बोल रहे हैं. अगर ऐसा होता तो हमारे डेटा की क्रेडिबिलिटी इंटरनेशनल होती ही नहीं. Then the agencies wouldn't have, and what are your friends in Indian Statistical Service doing then? And I'm very proud to tell you, and I feel proud within myself that in spite of being a developing economy, we had the understanding and the maturity to set up an Indian Statistical Service for data collection, interpretation, allocation way back in 1960s. And an Indian Economic Service for economic policy making. बहुत सारे डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज ये नहीं करते हैं कि स्टैटिस्टिक्स के लिए एक अलग से सिस्टम ही होना चाहिए। हमने किया वो, तो हमारे डेटा सेट तो हैं काफ़ी सारे हमारे पास, तो ये मत सोचना कभी भी कि अनऑर्गेनाइज का हमारे को हमें कुछ पता ही नहीं है। ये हमेशा सब लोग दिमाग में रखोगे, और बिकॉज द इंप्रेशन क्रिएटेड इज लाइक दैट, एज इफ वी डोंट नो एनीथिंग। यस यस। We will have to digress a lot for that. So I can answer you separately, but I'll save the time right now. All right, but I will be willing to answer you that separately. Yes, yes. 1 year. I mean, it's done every year. Unfortunately, last 3 years it has not happened. Like 21, 22, and 23. Like last was 2021 survey. Then 21, 22, 22, 23, we have had no survey on this. So we are still waiting for the result properly. Like we have had the surveys, but not as detailed as what they used to be. So government has said that due to COVID pandemic and supply chain disruption, it's happening. But to be honest, I think they are a little worried about the real data. You know, that's what I feel many times. All right. Then within this, understand, when you write an answer to role of public sector industries, you will begin with the 1956 Industrial Policy Resolution, where we talked about how public sector was given the role of commanding heights and with the objectives of price control, employment generation. You've written all that earlier. You know, that was the objective of public sector. Then we move to what was their role, what was their contribution. So I'm making you write few things, you please take that up. You write, Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 divided industries into three groups, divided industries into three groups, full stop. Category A consisted of 17 industries which were entirely 17 industries which were entirely and exclusively reserved for public sector, entirely and exclusively reserved for public sector, full stop. Category B consisted of another 28 industries, where all future investment was to be done by public sector. All future investment was to be done by public sector. So I'll tell you what that implies, or what I mean by saying that. That category B were industries where if you were a private sector, you would not be nationalized. In category A, if there was a private sector, it will be nationalized. I'll repeat myself. Category A meant private sector will not do any future investment, and if there exists a private sector, it will be nationalized. प्राइवेट सेक्टर को अलाउड नहीं होगा आगे इन्वेस्टमेंट करना, और अगर पहले से हैं तो उन्हें नेशनलाइज कर लिया जाएगा, सरकार टेक ओवर कर लेगी. That is what category A meant, that it was not allowed to invest, and if there exists a private sector, we will take it over. In category B, the government said, if there exists a private sector, we will not interfere with that, but all future investments will be done only by the government. If there exists a private sector, we will not interfere with that, but all future investments will be done by government. There were industries like shipping in it, industries like steel in it. Private sector was not allowed to invest further. If you already had an investment, you could prevail, but you were not allowed to make further investments in it. All right, that is kind of a category B industries. And then you write and category C, which consisted of category C, which consisted of all other industries in which both public sector and private sector could make investment. Okay, now I will make you write the benefits of public sector or the role played by public sector positively. You can use this information that I'm giving you right now also while writing an answer on whether socialist model of growth contributed to India's industrialization or not. You mean category C? It was like all others. So if you ask me, there would be more than 250 such industries. All right. Now, so yes. Could you repeat yourself once more? No. It would be about existence. If they exist, they can invest within the limits set by the government. For example, if I am a Tisco, now government says no more steel companies in India. All right, it will be only done by government. Then Tisco won't be restricted in expansion. All right, but no new company can be established over there. All right. Now you write major role played by public sector. Major role played by public sector. And you write 1. Before I go ahead, understand one more thing, since I mentioned MSME before that. MSME doesn't necessarily mean only manufacturing. MSME will mean services also. A small law firm can be an MSME. A small roadside hotel can be an MSME. You understand that? An astrologer sitting and looking after your future may be running an MSME. All right? So micro, small, medium enterprises are goods as well as services. All right? So never confuse it with only manufacturing. It can be either. All right? Okay. Coming back to my point, you write the first one. Category C, automobile. I can give you one more. All the FMCG companies making toothpastes and so on, making stationery, making soaps. These were all category C. All right. You write first one, it promoted industrial diversification. It promoted industrial diversification. That is, India, which was producing less than 20 industrial goods in 1947, was producing more than 8,000 manufacturing commodities, more than 8,000 manufacturing commodities by 1991. In the same point you write, public sector also led in establishment, public sector also led in establishment and development, establishment and development of modern industries like chemical, electronic, electrical appliances, etc. Chemical, electronic, electrical appliances, etc. That's one thing that public sector did. It diversified industries in India, because before independence we did not have a diversified structure. All right? Yes, yes. They were not diversifying. They were producing consumer goods still. Diversification means different types of good. It intuitively looks like that, but that didn't happen in, say, Brazil. They still kept producing more and more of their intermediate goods. So intuitively, it might sound that private sector can create more diversity, but if you look at global, empirical data, it's a very mixed data. All right. Second point, then you write, public sector contributed to infrastructure development. Public sector contributed to infrastructure development mainly in the field of energy and transportation. Like, I'll give you two things to make you understand. 2300 megawatt was electricity generation capacity of India in 1951, and 93,000 megawatt was the electricity generation capacity by 1991. So in 40 years, that had increased kind of 40 times. All right, so from 2300 megawatt to 93,000 megawatt in a span of 40 years. That's one example of how dominant role they were playing. And similarly, in road development, when we became independent, we don't have very credible data there, but generally the data suggests that the total all-weather road in India was not more than 10,000 kilometers. And by 1991, that had reached approximately 90,000 kilometers. So this is something, national highway that is. So this is something again that we started developing. The government created border road organization. The government created highway development, national highways, state highways, district roads. And a lot of road development happened in India, and a lot of electricity development happened in India. Again, public sector led. When we will discuss the problems of public sector, we'll bring it back. But the only problem we could see in this was the qualitative aspect, that the quality was not at times superior. Next point, you write, it promoted capital formation in India. It promoted capital formation in India, where public sector's contribution to industrial investment increased from less than 40%, less than 40% in 1947 to more than 60% by 1969, peaking at PEAKING, peaking at 66% of total industrial investment, 66% of total industrial investment in 1974, and remaining above 50% remaining above 50% till sixth 5-year plan. In fact, even in seventh 5-year plan, public sector was contributing 48% of total investment, 85 to 90. All right. So if we are looking at 1991, almost 50-50 contribution public sector kept doing, while in some of the spaces, 60 to 80, public sector's contribution was even above 60% of total industrial investment. All right. Now, please keep such trends in mind. अगर तुम्हें कोई प्राइवेट सेक्टर पे आंसर लिखना है, यहाँ से पिक कर लेना चाहिए. If public sector was contributing less than 40% in 1951, then 47, then private sector must be contributing the rest. You understand that? If public sector contribution rises to above 60% by 1960s, private sector contribution must come down. Of course, I'll tell you the reasons how it was happening and why it was happening, but important is to pick up the points and say, okay, the opposite has to be private sector. So if I remember for public sector, I will automatically remember for private sector. All right. In the same thing, you write, the investments also included technological inputs, and training of human resource. Then you write next, fourth point, it contributed to employment generation Again, remember the points like this: industrial diversification, infrastructure development, investment promotion, employment generation. So again, when you make it into points, then you have to remember the trend, the point. English you can write on your own. You understand that? So that is the way to go ahead on these questions. All right. So it contributed to employment generation where public sector employment continuously increased from less than 1% of workforce in 1951 to more than 4% of workforce by 1991. Full stop. Apart from higher employment, it also focused on higher social security, better wages, and better working conditions for the workers. So it was like public sector was trying to show what a model employer can be. All right, that was the idea. Next point, you write, it contributed to balanced regional growth. By setting up industries in relatively less developed areas. Contributed to balanced regional growth by setting up industries in relatively less developed areas. For example, For example, the four steel mills of India, the four steel mills of India in 1950s at Bokaro, Rourkela, Durgapur and Bhilai. Bokaro, Rourkela, Durgapur and Bhilai, set up with foreign collaboration. Set up with foreign collaboration. And you know, there was one more thing. Wherever public sector was established, it did not only focus on their own investment, it was also focusing on creating the urban infrastructure. All right, that if it is established, then the urban infrastructure in the area, townships and all, will also be developed by them. All right, that was done very often. Like Mekon city in Ranchi. All right, that kind of a thing they would do. That if they are established, they will create a model township along with that. Then you write next. You wrote 5 points, right? Yes, yes. अच्छा, दो कारण थे. एक कारण था प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट उतना था ही नहीं कि प्रमोट हो सकता, और दूसरा था कि सरकार प्राइवेट के साथ मिलकर काम करेंगे ऐसी सोच ही नहीं थी. द थॉट प्रोसेस वाज नॉट देयर दैट गवर्नमेंट एंड प्राइवेट हैव टू वर्क टुगेदर. इट वाज अबाउट गवर्नमेंट्स डोमिनेंस. ऑलराइट, जो तुम अभी देखते हो ना ब्यूरोक्रेटिक कंट्रोल, इट्स नॉट इवन 10% ऑफ द ब्यूरोक्रेटिक कंट्रोल दैट इंडिया वुड हैव इन 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. नॉट इवन 10%. मतलब बस सांस लेने के लिए परमिशन नहीं मांगने की हालत थी, हर बात के लिए नहीं तो परमिशन. तो वो जो कंट्रोल था ना, वो द थिंकिंग वाज दैट दिस वे वी विल डू वेलफेयर टू द पीपल, एंड एक इनहेरेंट डिसबिलीफ इन प्राइवेट सेक्टर्स कैपेसिटी टू ग्रो. ऑलराइट, दैट वाज आल्सो देयर, एन इनहेरेंट डिसबिलीफ दैट दीस गाइज विल बी करप्ट, दे विल बी क्रूकेड. वही तो बात कह रहा हूं कि हम लोग तो जो बात करते हैं, तुम सोच के देखना, हम लोग जैसे बात करते हैं, हमारी सरकार जैसे बोलते हैं, ऐसा लगता है जैसे बिना पैसे के काम होता है ना. वही तो माइंडसेट था कि पैसे को इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं दिया जा रहा था. That somebody can contribute money rather than taking aid was not the mindset. Mindset was government will create everything even if it comes at an aid. तुम अभी भी देखो, नॉर्मली लोगों से पूछोगे करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट कैसे पूरा करें. मैं क्लासरूम में जीएस क्लास में आप बहुत लोगों के साथ करता हूं कि करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट कैसे पूरा करें, इमीडिएटली लोग बोलते हैं बोरो कर लेंगे. कोई ये नहीं कहता एफडीआई एफआईआई बुला लेंगे, वो भी तो कैपिटल अकाउंट सरप्लस करेगा, मांग लेंगे, इसमें क्या है. वो माइंडसेट है, मांगेंगे बस. एफडीआई एफआईआई सोचेंगे ही नहीं. तो ये यही समझा रहा हूँ that in those days 50s 60s it was even more so, because don't forget there were heydays of socialism, state sponsored, so there was no question. Government used to feel private sector is inferior. इनसे बढ़िया काम तो हम लोग कर लेंगे. और to be honest 50s और 60s में ऐसा देख के लगता भी था. Government schools would be teaching very well. Public sector initially would be performing very well. The morass set in only after 1966, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71. वो गड़बड़ होनी वहाँ से शुरू हुई. नहीं तो 50s 60s के ग्रोथ को अगर देखो, उस समय के इंस्टीट्यूशंस को अगर देखें, actually they were performing pretty well. So it was not a false belief to have that we can do better than them. Unfortunately, later on, the things went bad. All right, you take this up then, you write, public sector institutions, 6 point here. Public sector institutions were also created to promote research and development, in India, especially in the field of defense, nuclear energy, space research, and pharmaceuticals. Full stop. Many universities were also doing path-breaking research in field of information technology, internal security, etc. All right. Now see, challenges of public sector. When I was teaching you India between 66 to 80, we had picked up a point, poor pricing strategy, and so on. If you recall, many points I had made you right there. That is where you will pick up the challenges of public sector. So objectives of public sector, positive role of public sector, challenges of public sector. India before 91, you have your answers ready on that. All right, that if they ask you about critically analyze the role of public sector in Indian economy before 91, you will talk about objectives, positive role, and the challenges. I hope this can be done. All right, let's see. So you write that question and try writing an answer. I'll give you an answer to that. I'll teach you how you can confine all that in 150 words. All right, so I'm giving you the question. You put a inverted comma and write public sector industries, within inverted comma, you should write this. Public sector industries did not only contribute to faster growth, but also had multiple other contributions. Comma. However, they still remained a story. They still remained a story of performance below potential. Close the inverted comma and write, put a full stop and write, discuss the above statement in context of performance of public sector before 1991. One point among role of public sector I missed upon it. You please add that, 7th point. मैं एक बात मिस कर गया. ये दो ही लाइन्स हैं, आप कहीं साइड में लिख के रख लो इसे. You write, क्योंकि ये दो लाइन्स अभी इसलिए हैं क्योंकि मैं डिटेल में आपको बाद में पढ़ाऊंगा. I'll teach you these things in detail, but right now 2 lines. You write, public sector contributed to growth of financial system. Public sector contributed to growth of financial system through public sector banks and other related institutions. Well, when I say other related institutions, I mean NABARD, I mean SIDBI, I mean Exim Bank. All right, these are other related institutions. Export-Import Bank, Small Industrial Development Bank of India, National Agricultural Bank, Bank for Rural Development, Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Even organizations like development banks, ICICI, IDBI, IFCI, they were development banks established in the pre-91 phase. So these are all financial sector development that public sector was contributing to. Yes, yes. Benefits for? You can use these points as to how the socialist growth in India was positively contributing to industrial structure development. All right. Electronic can be a mobile phone, and electrical appliances is a ceiling fan. So this is not electronic, and mobile phone is not electrical necessarily. All right. Public sector gives you a permanent job, pension possibilities, accident compensation, that's social security. They give you better leave opportunities, fixed time of the job, that's workers' condition better. So this question can be for 10 marks or 20 marks. I will teach you how you can write for both, 150 words and 300 words. All right, how you can create an answer for both. All right. Now I'm giving you 2 more questions. ये 2 questions के थ्रू मैं आपको सिखाऊंगा आगे. ये उम्मीद नहीं करता कि आप अभी लिख दो इसका आंसर. मैं बताऊंगा आपको. एक क्वेश्चन आप लिखो. Examine the role of private sector. Examine the role of private sector in India's development before 1991. And another question you write. Again, within inverted comma, you write, capital formation in Indian agriculture has shown typical trend with respect to GDP growth in agriculture, and efficiency improvement in agriculture. GDP growth in agriculture and efficiency improvement in agriculture. Close the inverted comma and write, explain the statement using trends of capital formation. Explain the statement using trends of capital formation in agriculture before 1991. All right, so we will develop that up. Sometimes they can give you in the question paper before 91, but if you go 5-6 years after that, they don't penalize you because they know that the trend has to be established. All right, so to establish the trend, they don't mind that you are doing it. All right, now we go into a talk on microeconomics. I'll teach you role of private sector, don't worry, when I give you the answer to this question, which is hardly a 250-word answer. So don't worry about that. I take you into microeconomics now, and we will begin with cardinal utility theory. Cardinal utility theory. This is also Marshall's theory, Marshallian theory. So this cardinal utility theory was given by Alfred Marshall. electrical appliances and electronic equipments. Khushi, I'm answering your question. No, private sector was not in a position to do that, Divyanshi. SHGs are not a part of MSME, Ritu. They are different. Invisible hand theory has not persisted, Ruchika. I don't see, Rudhita, sorry, invisible hand theory persisting there. You know, government role is hardly decelerating even in today's India, to be honest. Cheaper credit led to low share of capital, low share of labor, Chanchal, not low share of industries. Cheaper credit led to low share of labor in industrialization. Read it carefully, you will get it. The discussion of challenges of public sector is in India between 1966 to 1980. That was the first point that we were doing. Then I was answering your question. All right. Now see, first things first, what we are discussing here in microeconomics, if you ask me that, okay sir, that what is the topic? So we begin by discussion on consumer behavior. All that we will be discussing starting now over next, say 3, 4, 5 classes, maybe 6 sometimes, will be consumer behavior. So what is consumer behavior? What was Marshall trying to do? What is this Marshallian theory? He was trying to see the economy from demand side. Not many in those days would see microeconomics in that much detail because people would believe micro, macro, everything is fine. Also remember, economics as a field of study is not more than 250 years old, 275 years old. It started with Industrial Revolution and people like Adam Smith, J.B. Say, etc. They started propounding theories and even they were between political economy and pure economy. And then gradually economics evolved as a field of study, the modern economics as we see it. So by 1890s, 1900s, people like Alfred Marshall were interested in knowing that, okay, why do people demand more when the price is less? Why do people demand less when the price is more? Why do people demand more when income rises? And so on and so forth. And they were trying to give all this as an exposition to understanding human behavior better. So they gave it a name, consumer behavior. Why does the consumer behave in a particular manner, responding to the changes in income, changes in price? What is the reason that the consumer would behave like that? So Marshall and Jevons, 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 and then Pigou slightly after, were the initial people doing all this. All right, जो पहले कुछ लोग थे जो ये सब पढ़ रहे थे, उनमें थे Marshall, Jevons, and Pigou. These were the 2-3 people who were initially interested in knowing about these things. Now, Marshall took up the assumption that human satisfaction, that is utility, so utility is satisfaction derived from a good or service. So they said human satisfaction has a role in determining what the people do. जो भी लोग करते हैं अपने satisfaction के लिए करते हैं. तो ये पहले लोग थे जो ऐसा कह रहे थे that satisfaction has a role to play, and they gave satisfaction a name, utility. All right, that what satisfaction you get from the business that you do, from the work that you do, from the income that you earn, from the consumption that you do, and so on. Then Marshall and Jevons together coined a term. Jevons was the one who mentions it first time, if I go by the chronological order of how research was published. But Marshall also took it up after that. So it's included in Marshallian theory. The concept of utils. They said utility can be measured in terms of utils. All right, that utility can be quantified in terms of utils. So in a sense, they were saying that I am getting 20 util satisfaction watching this movie. I am getting 50 util satisfaction eating this food. That is what they meant, that you can measure utility and express it in terms of utils. the only catch here was they never defined what was a util. Jevons had an answer to it. Jevons said, look, we are discussing microeconomics, so everybody will have their own definition of utils. But that was a challenge because how do you make something as a standard way of expression if everybody has their own method of it? Do I believe I'm reaching you on that? कि जब आप कहते हैं ये स्टैंडर्ड वे ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन है, आप बोलेंगे यूटिल्स के टर्म में सब, जैसे आप कहेंगे अगर मैं बोलूं मैं 90 केजी का हूं, आप बोलें आप 150 केजी के हैं, तो एक स्टैंडर्ड वे हुआ ना, पता चलता है कौन कितने केजी का है, उससे अंदाजा लगा सकता है अच्छा क्या साइज होगा इनका, कैसे दिखते होंगे. बट ये केजी डिफाइंड है, and that kg is defined with the gravitational pull, it is defined with respect to your body mass. But when I say I am happy 60 utils today, and you say I am happy 40 utils today, and then my util is different from your util, because we are expressing microeconomically, creates more trouble than solving them, no? You understand that? So that is where one thing happened, that they said utils is an expression, but they never went into detail of talking about what does this util do. अच्छा ये util का मतलब क्या है, किसके लिए? Because you have to standardize things in order to get utils meaning. But in those days, again I repeat, they were early days, people were not objecting much. It was taken as an achievement that okay, somebody is talking about consumer behavior. So they said, all right, utils becomes a picture that you can express consumer satisfaction in terms of utils. And based on that, they coined the two terms you must have read in NCERT. One, total utility, isn't it? Which is total number of utils that you get after consuming all units of a commodity. All right? So total utility, that is total satisfaction derived by an individual after consuming all units of a commodity. Please see the microeconomic nature of this statement. The microeconomic nature of this statement is derived by an individual after consuming units of a commodity. You see that? That's the microeconomic nature of the statement. We are talking about one person, we are talking about one commodity or maybe one basket. That is the microeconomic nature of the statement. And so effectively it meant how many utils? That okay, if I have consumed 20 units of a commodity and I am satisfied 100 utils, then that is my total satisfaction expressed. All right. And of course, connected to that, they gave the other word, marginal utility. That is addition to total utility by consuming an extra unit of the commodity. Addition to total utility by consuming an extra unit of the commodity. So if I consume, say, first unit of a commodity and I get, say, 10 utils satisfaction, and then if I consume second unit of the commodity and I get 8 utils satisfaction, then this 10 and 8 become my marginal utility, and 18 becomes the total utility after consuming 2 units. I hope everybody is okay on that talk? Okay. Now, Marshall used this theory of utils, prices, etc., to give his theory of consumer equilibrium. So now, before he gave his theory of consumer equilibrium, which was based on two laws, law of diminishing marginal utility and law of equimarginal utility. All right, these were away. So these were two laws that he gave, law of diminishing marginal utility and law of equimarginal utility. Now, what were these laws? How did he achieve that? So he took some assumptions. So some typical assumptions of Marshallian theory were assumptions. One was, he said that people will be rational. All right, rationality. Now, what does that imply when we say rationality? Rationality simply means, and remember, cardinal idea, और क्यों उसको cardinal utility बोले, एक ये भी समझ लो आप. Yes, it was said cardinal utility because it was assumed that we can measure and quantify utility. 1 util, 2 util, 5 util, 10 util. So it was called cardinal utility theory. That since it was assumed that utility is measurable in numbers, so it was called cardinal utility, that it can be quantified. Now, when we talk about rationality, Marshall's idea of rationality was different from Hicks's or ordinal utility theorist's idea of rationality. And Marshall's idea of rationality is what we keep telling you, sometimes making you write that even in your ordinal utility theory. I'll tell you what, even though the crux was not different, but the ideas were different. So Marshall was saying in his idea of rationality that people will take their decisions based on what will be most suitable for their requirement. As in, they will take the decision based on what their rationality will permit. Now, rationality itself is a term we need to understand. कि कभी-कभी एक गलत तरीके से आपको प्रेजेंट किया जाता है, that ये अखबार में जो लोग लिखते हैं उनको काफी करते देखता हूँ कि इकोनॉमिक्स में तो ये अज्यूम ही किया जाता है that human beings will be selfish. Selfish is different from being rational. Understand that. If I am being rational, I am not being selfish necessarily, or vice versa. I can be irrationally selfish. Like I can believe that my betterment is the only thing and your betterment means nothing. In the process, I am irrational, not realizing that unless your betterment doesn't happen, how will my betterment happen as your coach? So I can be selfish and I can be very irrational. And I can be rational and I can realize, look, if I don't do wasteful expenditure, or if I don't waste the natural resource and I go ahead and switch off my fan, or I don't take a blanket and an AC, then I'm saving energy for everyone. And if I'm saving energy for everyone, I will also do my bit and contribute to less global warming. I will contribute to better life on earth. Now I'm being rational and I'm not being selfish. Nobody in their rationality will defy it. You understand that? So never confuse rationality with selfishness. Rationality, the thing is, you will not be doing things to please others. Individualism led to European rationality. I'm sure many of you would have read it in your political science, NCRT, etc. kind of thing. I have not read them, but hopefully they should be there. The growth of individualism in Europe led to that rationality definition in Europe, where they said that your rationality has to be individualist in nature. ऐसे मैं आपको एक दो एग्जाम्पल दे रहा हूं और मजाक में बोल रहा हूं लेकिन बात सीरियस कर रहा हूं. जैसे जब हम बोलते हैं कि मैं अपने बेटे का फर्स्ट बर्थडे सेलिब्रेट कर रहा हूं या बेटी का, अगर मैं अपनी खुशी के लिए कर रहा हूं तो रैशनल है. पर 15 साल बाद जब मैं अपने बेटे को याद दिलाता हूं या बेटी को, मैं तुम्हें इतना प्यार करता हूं, मैंने तुम्हारा पहला बर्थडे सेलिब्रेट किया, उनको पता ही नहीं, क्योंकि उनके लिए कुछ नहीं हुआ उसमें, मेरे लिए हुआ. वो 1 साल के हैं. At the age of 1, the child doesn't know anybody else except the parents, maybe the grandparents if they live with the child. So for the child, that birthday is a burden. कोई भी आ रहा है, अपना घुमा उठा लिया, पकड़ लिया, हिला दिया ऐसे पकड़ के, गाल टच के गुजू गुजू कर दिया, उसको पता ही नहीं चल रहा उसके साथ क्या हो रहा है. आज ऐसा कौन सा दिन है, उसको जबरदस्ती कपड़े वपड़े डाल दिए उसके ऊपर, ऐसे बेचारा आराम से बिना कपड़े के नाचता रहता था. एक अननोन प्लेस पार्टी हॉल में ले गए उसको, अब उसको पता ही नहीं, अननोन सी प्लेस, अननोन से कपड़े, अननोन लोग, इतनी भीड़, और मदर फादर को मेरे लिए टाइम नहीं है, दुनिया भर के लिए है. तो आप देखेंगे मैक्सिमम फोटोग्राफ्स या बच्चों के बर्थडे में जाइए, वो या तो रोते हुए या सोते हुए दिखते हैं, और सपोजिटली बर्थडे उनका मन रहा है. सो वी आर सेलिब्रेटिंग somebody's first birthday without that somebody being an active participant in it. That somebody is either crying, or that somebody is sleeping, or that somebody is playing with somebody else, not with his favorite people, which will normally be the parents, because they are the two people he has grown up with till then, or she has grown up with till then. Then the pleasure has to be parents. Then parents cannot 15 years later say, look, I spent so much on your first birthday, look, I loved you so much. No, you didn't. And I'm saying it as the father of two. मैं कोई, और ये स्टेटमेंट मैं अपने दोस्तों को भी बोल देता हूँ. अब धीरे धीरे समझ जाएंगे क्योंकि क्यों मैं क्लासेस में ज़्यादा रहता हूँ और मेरा सोशल सर्कल कम है. You know, क्योंकि मैं ऐसी बातें बोल देता हूँ पब्लिकली भी कि ये प्यार बच्चे के लिए थोड़ा ही था, ये तो समाज को दिखाने के लिए था कि आई हैव अराइव्ड, माई चाइल्ड हैज अराइव्ड, look at this flashy party, and we are throwing all this so that you don't come to me tomorrow and say, oh, how miserly you are that you didn't even give me a party. So I'm saving myself, I'm doing nothing much for the kid. If I had to do for the kid, again I repeat, then I would do it as the kid would wish it to happen. I will try predicting that. कि हाँ भाई ये बच्चा क्या चाहता है कि आज के दिन क्या हो, इसको सबसे ज्यादा मजा किस चीज में आएगा, तब तो वो बर्थडे स्पेशल डे उस बच्चे के लिए हुआ, तब मैं उसे 15 साल बाद एहसान दिखा सकता हूं कि भाई साहब तुम्हारे बर्थडे के दिन मेरा बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट काम था वो भी मैंने छोड़ दिया, तुम्हारे साथ दिन भर बैठा रहा, तुमसे मस्ती करता रहा, खेलता रहा, मुझे भी बड़ा मजा आ रहा था पर तुम्हें भी आ रहा था, तो हमारी दोस्ती उतनी पुरानी है, अब क्यों परेशान हो रहे हो। ये समझता हूं ये रैशनैलिटी है। नहीं तो आप अगर कहते हैं मैंने बच्चे के लिए किया और इसलिए बर्थडे किए, पैसे भी खर्च कर दिए, ये इरैशनल एक्सपेंडिचर है क्योंकि आप किए किसी और के लिए। अगर आप अपने लिए कर रहे हैं और कॉन्शियस होकर कर रहे हैं कि हाँ नहीं, बच्चा जाए भाई कहीं भी जाता है, मेरे लिए जरूरी है, समाज में मेरी एक प्रतिष्ठा है, I have a respect to keep in society, I have a friend circle, so I need to make sure that all of them remain in good humor, and kid's birthday becomes an occasion where I can put all that in place, hence I am celebrating the kid's birthday. You are a rational person. Period. You know, so I'm not saying celebrating the birthday is rational or irrational, I'm saying the reason for which you are doing it is rational or irrational. You know, that is the point. तुम अगर यूपीएससी कर रहे हो क्योंकि तुम किसी को दिखाओगे कि तुम कितने तेज हो, तो तुम इरैशनल हो। तुम अगर यूपीएससी कर रहे हो क्योंकि तुम्हें ये करियर ग्राफ बेस्ट लग रहा है, दैट आई वांट टू बी दिस बिकॉज माय कैलिबर सपोर्ट्स इट, माय एप्टीट्यूड सपोर्ट्स इट, एंड इफ आई बिकम दिस आई विल फील वेरी हैप्पी, दैट इज अ रैशनल वे टू गो अबाउट इट। यू नो, तो रैशनैलिटी का मतलब वही होता है दैट यू टेक डिसीजंस बेस्ड ऑन individualism. Now I'm using an economics language, I'm sure most of you will get my point. Rationality then effectively means not suffering from positive or negative externality while taking the decision. कि जब आप डिसीजन ले रहे हैं ना तो आप कहीं पॉजिटिवली इन्फ्लुएंस हो रहे हैं ना नेगेटिवली, जो भी डिसीजन आप ले रहे हैं सिर्फ अपने वजह से ले रहे हैं और अपनी मानसिकता से ले रहे हैं। So if you are taking a decision based on only your mindset, based on only your belief systems, you are being rational. Now that's an assumption taken because people don't do it in the real world. What do you take as an assumption? What people don't do in the real world, no. So rationality was taken as an assumption by Marshall because of that. He said that people won't behave rationally in general, but we are assuming that human beings have to be rational for these theories to work out. You understand that? That was the idea of rationality. Law of demand कैसे prevail करेगा अगर मैं rational ना हूं? If I am not rational, if I am not looking at only my own thought process, law of demand will not prevail. प्राइस बढ़ने के साथ हो सकता है मैं इनकम ना बढ़ रही हो। एक एग्जाम्पल ले लो, मैं पहले भी बात कर चुका हूं, मैं गरीब हूं, मेरे ऊपर पहले से 1 लाख का कर्ज है, लेकिन मैं और कर्ज लेके बच्चे का मुंडन करा लूं, इस प्रोसेस में मेरा भी मुंडन हो गया। ये irrational है। This is being irrational, but I'm doing it violating the law of demand, violating the laws of economics, because I'm being irrational. Why? Because I decided to celebrate a function taking a lot of loans while I was already indebted. That's being irrational. So in economics, we assume people will be rational, assuming that people will take their best call, and based on that, their individual decision making will work. So, in general, what will we write here? Rationality will imply decisions are taken by individuals without any external influence and based on their own theoretical judgment. I'm actually writing for you what Marshall had written in his thesis. That is what he defined as rationality. Marshall again, Gosson worked on it. Lipakshi, I'm answering your question. I'll tell you, Yash, how you are using them in real life. I will be telling you. In fact, you use them every day in your real life, all these theories. Yes, yes. Economics and moral are not disconnected. Yeah. I mean, when you say economics point of view and not moral, it seems the two are disconnected, but they are not, to be honest. All right? एक second में let. No, we are doing it to save the earth, save our future generations. Imagine what kind of irrationality is it that I am accumulating gold, I'm accumulating buildings, I'm accumulating money, saying my future generations will live happily with this, and I'm deaccumulating natural resources where the future generations won't even exist. So that's irrational, isn't it? So that mindset is irrational. That's why the assumption of rationality has to be taken. The human mind will behave many times irrationally. You know, तो इसीलिए तो rationality का assumption लेना पड़ता है. All right, that is the idea. Yes, yes. Internal emotions are, if you're working on that, that's rational. So if you want to please your father, and that is why you are doing something, you are being perfectly rational in this. You understand that? That if I am, that's why I told you that celebrate the child's first birthday, but identify the reason why you are doing it. So don't tell the child 20 years later I did it for you. You understand this? वैसे इमोशन की बात कही ना तुमने, तो एक बात तुम्हें बताता हूँ. मेरे बेटे को किसी ने एक दिन बोल दिया, पुरानी बात हो गई 7-8 साल पहले, किसी ने बोल दिया पितृ ऋण होता है. फादर पुट्स an onus on you, father has developed you, तो उनका आपको ऋण वापस करना होगा. You will have to pay back your father for what he has done to you. He came to me. He said, what can I do to pay back to you? Because you have done so much for me, I have been told this. So I explained to him. I said, look, when you were born, I had a lot of pleasure. When you grew up, looking at you, I had all that pleasure. When you moved around, played with me, I had a lot of pleasure. You have paid back all your money that you have taken from me. Because that is the cost of my pleasure. So why should I unnecessarily burden you? So that is my emotion. I am happy having a child. But imagine if I had had a child for the society. अगर मेरा बच्चा नहीं हुआ तो समाज क्या बोलेगी मुझे? अब बच्चा भी फंसा और मैं भी फंसा. And now I will be after that fellow's life. तुम ये क्यों नहीं अचीव करते? तुम्हारे 98 से कम आए तो मैं अंकल को क्या बोलूंगा? बोल दूंगा आ गए 98. अगर वो बोलेंगे नहीं मुझे पता चला, तुम्हें कैसे पता चला? मैं पापा हूं, जाओ. You understand that? So what is it that I value? Emotions will also decide that. Well, that is the point. That is microeconomics. So rationality of each individual will be different. You understand that? In microeconomics, all of you should always keep it in mind that never look for universal examples and never look for outside the model examples. They will never happen. It's all individual situation, individual. What may be your liking may not be my liking. What may be my liking may not be your liking. It can be like that. And to be honest to you, that is why when I see and I talk to people, I believe economics has such a wonderful lesson for all of us, that to each his own. I mean, if you are eating beef, it's your preference, and if I am not eating beef, it's my preference, as long as you are not making me eat beef, or I am not stopping you from eating it. Then one of us will become irrational, that we want the other to do what we want us to do. And that is why, again I repeat, since Marshall knew, and all of you should understand it, that humans don't only live individually, and humans live as a community. So individual level, humans can go irrational, do go irrational. So he took the assumption of rationality. All right, that was the idea, actually. All right. Okay, let's see this. The second assumption that he took was that utility is additive. Utility is additive. I have already told you that Marshall believed that utility can be measured in terms of utils. Alright, he believed that utility can be measured in terms of utils. Now he says utility is additive. That means, it means total utility derived by an individual is the sum of utility derived from all the consumption done by her. So total utility derived by an individual is the sum of all utility derived from all the consumption done by her. Now what does that mean? Understand this. Marshall was in a sense saying that if an individual is consuming x1, x2, xn, n commodities, all right, if an individual is consuming n commodities, like this x1 will be say 10 kg tea, x2 can be 50 kg sugar, xn can be 100 chapatis. You understand that? So any commodity in its amount, 1 to n will be a commodity and x is the amount of that commodity. जब भी आप माइक्रो में ऐसा लिखा देखें xi, तो I will mean ith commodity and x means amount of it. Alright, that is what it means, that x is the amount of that commodity, I is the ith commodity. Alright, तो ये हुआ पहला commodity, दूसरा commodity, nth commodity and so on. तो suppose एक individual n commodities consume करते हैं, अगर n आपको दुखी करता है तो यहाँ 100, 200, 500 कोई नंबर लिख दो, मुझे कोई आपत्ति नहीं है. Alright, जितने भी commodity का उनका bundle है. तो मान लो एक individual है जिनके n commodity का bundle है. This n can be 5, 10, 20, 30, anything. Then Marshall was saying that the total utility of this individual can be measured by just adding total utility the individual derives from first commodity, plus the total utility derived from second commodity, plus the total utility derived from third commodity, and so on till total utility derived from nth commodity. All right? So if we add up the utility derived from each commodity, we get total utility of the individual. That was what Marshall's idea was. Utility is additive. But mind you, when you give such an idea, you are ruling out complementarity. You understand that the two things can give you satisfaction together. Because this kind of believes that everything will have to be a perfect substitute of each other. So if I put it my way, ये मेरे समझाने का तरीका है, उम्मीद है आप समझेंगे कि मार्शल के हिसाब से आप चाय पत्ती खा लेते थे, you will eat up the tea leaves, you will drink milk, you will drink water, you will eat sugar and then start shaking on the gas stove. That is what Marshall would assume. All right, that is your utility. कि आपका utility ऐसे ही आता है भाई. लेकिन obviously real world ऐसा नहीं होता था. But Marshall assume करते थे. Again, Marshall's life was tough. Don't forget. Marshall did not have calculus to prove his point, and Marshall did not have the history to understand how humans behave they do. So Marshall was taking these rigid assumptions that okay, if utility is taken, it will be additive. आप सभी चीजों को add कर दो जो लोगों ने consume किया, आपको उनकी satisfaction मिल जाएगी. And utility will be, people will be rational. Again, I repeat, he had already assumed or he had already accepted that utility can be measured in terms of utils. Another assumption that he took, third, was that marginal utility of money is constant. Marginal utility of money is constant. What does marginal utility of money represent? These are there in your notes also. I'm just adding few more things to it. So marginal utility of money remains constant. So what does marginal utility of money represent? Satisfaction derived from one extra unit of money. That is marginal utility of money. The satisfaction I will get from one extra unit of money, or the satisfaction that I will lose if I sacrifice one unit of money. अगर मैं 1 रुपया किसी को देता हूं तो मेरे कितने यूटिल्स चले गए, और अगर मुझे 1 रुपया किसी से मिलता है तो मुझे कितने यूटिल्स मिल गए. Alright, if I give 1 rupee to someone, how many utils did I sacrifice? Or if I get 1 rupee from someone, how many utils did I gain? That is marginal utility of money. And Marshall took marginal utility of money as constant. What does that imply? Please understand now. Marshall wanted to keep, I'll make you write it also, but Marshall wanted to keep money as the measuring rod of satisfaction. Measuring rod as in everything or every satisfaction expressed or expressible in terms of money. Alright, all the satisfaction expressed or expressible in terms of money. What does that mean? It's like when I say that I got 10 util satisfaction. What does that 10 util mean in general? So Marshall said if I keep marginal utility of money constant, then it will allow me to take money as that measuring rod, as that standard, in terms of which I will be able to express satisfaction of other things. Like, I'll give you an example, please understand. So suppose if I assume that marginal utility of money for one person is always equal to 2 utils. Alright, if suppose that is the assumption, that marginal utility of money doesn't change, it remains equal to a constant 2 utils. In a sense, Marshall was saying that 1 rupee for this person is equal to 2 utils. Or the Marshall was also saying that 1 util can be measured in rupee terms as half a rupee. That's what he wanted. And hence he didn't want this to fluctuate. You understand that? कि उनका मानना था कि अगर मैं इसे कांस्टेंट कर दूंगा तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? 1 rupee is equal to 2 utils. So if I have defined 1 rupee is equal to 2 utils, automatically the util can then be valued in terms of rupee. So tomorrow, if suppose I am this person, Vibhas. So tomorrow if Vibhas says that I am wearing a t-shirt, okay, so that I generally don't wear. So say I am wearing a trouser, and my marginal utility from that trouser is, say my 5th trouser is say 100 utils. Understand that. So if my marginal utility from my 5th trouser is 100 utils, and I am valuing 1 util as half a rupee at all points of time, because that's what comes out when I assume it to be a constant. So I am taking it as constant at all points of time. That means that I am valuing this 100 utils as 50 rupees. And my willingness to pay for this 5th trouser will then be 50 rupees. I hope I'm reaching you on this. I'm repeating it again in case you missed something. I am saying that if I assume that my marginal utility is always equal to 2 utils for money, that means 1 rupee of money is valued at 2 utils for me, which means 1 util in money terms can always be put as a standard value half a rupee. अब ये हमेशा के लिए सच हो गया ना. सोचो ये सिचुएशन खराब कब हो जाएगी? अगर मैं बोलूं the situation becomes bad if I say that money is like any other commodity for me, and therefore as I spend money my marginal utility of money rises, and as I get money my marginal utility of money falls. In real world that's what happens. अभी महीना का अंत हो रहा है, जैसे आप स्टूडेंट लाइफ में हैं तो आपको 1-1 रुपए का इंपॉर्टेंस धीरे धीरे पता चलता है कि अच्छा हाँ ये तो इंपॉर्टेंट पैसा है, ये बचना चाहिए हमारे पास. जब पहली तारीख आ गई, दूसरी तारीख आ गई, आपको पैसे मिल गए हाथ में, तो वापस आप शहंशाह हो गए. तो ये मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी है. That how much importance are you attaching to 1 rupee at a given point of time? Obviously, if I will have more money in my pocket, my utility I will attach to that money, each extra unit, might be lesser compared to when I have much lesser money in my pocket. Marshall understood this. It was not that Marshall didn't know this, but Marshall wanted to keep money as one method by which he could measure satisfaction in terms of money. So he said, let us assume that marginal utility of money remains constant. Satisfaction that an individual will get from one extra rupee will always remain constant. Do I believe I'm with you on this? So that means then that he could easily find out that now if I know that one util means this much money, I can easily find out that if somebody is deriving these many util satisfaction from something, how much money worth of satisfaction they are deriving from it. You understand that? So that is why I was continuously saying before this explanation that for Marshall, money was the measuring rod of utility. You understand that? So that makes money the measuring rod of utility. कि यूटिलिटी कितना मिला वो मनी के टर्म्स में सब बोल सकते हैं, यूनिवर्सल हो गया एक तरह से. दैट आई एम गेटिंग दिस मच यूटिलिटी मींस दिस मच मनी. ऑल राइट, आई एम मेकिंग यू राइट दिस. यू प्लीज टेक दिस डाउन. यू राइट, and we will keep writing marginal utility of money as MUM. Please keep that in mind. जब भी आप मुझे MUM लिखता देखते हैं, आप समझ जाइए मैं marginal utility of money लिख रहा हूं. All right. So you write there, Marshall assumed that MUM remains constant that is satisfaction derived by an individual from one unit of money will always remain same. This was done because Marshall wanted to use money as a measuring rod. Underline the word measuring rod. As a measuring rod or standard measure, of satisfaction. Full stop. If MUM remains constant, then it implies that value of util in terms of money remains constant for the individual at all points of time. All right. And then the fourth assumption that Marshall took was cardinality of utility. This implied that utility can be measured in quantity terms and expressed in terms of utils. It was the other way around, Divyanshi. our utils decided how much we are willing to pay. Inflation was not a concern in those days, Rudita, so they didn't bother much about that, actually. It is the total utility of an individual from all commodities. That is one assumption of total utility. And total utility for one commodity is the satisfaction from all its units. I hope, Shubhashmita, I can answer your question there. All right. I hope we are clear till this. The four assumptions. Yes, yes. Yeah. Like utility will decide my valuation of commodity. No, that is your assumption here is that you are rational. You have all the information. So when if you are reaching that this will satisfy me with 25 utils, it's known to you. All right, that is the idea. All right. Now, based on all these four assumptions, the first law was given, which was law of diminishing marginal utility. That was the satisfaction derived by an individual falls from consumption of each successive unit of a commodity. Satisfaction derived by an individual falls from consumption of each successive unit of a commodity. If I tell you in a 12th standard way, as an individual consumes more and more units of a commodity, the satisfaction derived from each extra unit becomes less and less. All right? It is just a more matured version, nothing else. All right? So don't bother. कि अच्छा ये क्या कौन सी बात आई? कुछ नहीं, बस एक वही बात है कि जैसे आप कंजम्पशन करेंगे, आपका satisfaction हर extra unit से कम होता जाएगा. All right? Your satisfaction from each extra unit will become lesser. All right? And based on that, Marshall established the total utility, marginal utility relationship. So Marshall was saying that if you take quantity consumed and you take total utility and then you take marginal utility from that commodity, it will imply that I can consume all these and then my total utility will be 0 at 0 units of consumption. My marginal utility will be undefined. Because remember, marginal utility is addition to satisfaction. Addition to satisfaction cannot happen if I am consuming nothing. All right. And then suppose I make a table. This is just an assumed table. अब कभी भी चिंता में मत पड़िएगा कि ये नंबर्स कहाँ से आ रहे हैं. ये नंबर्स मैं अज्यूम करता हूँ. इस क्लास में ब्रह्मा मैं हूँ. ठीक है. तो मेरा ब्रह्मांड है ये जो मैं यहाँ बना रहा हूँ. तो आप बिल्कुल चिंता मत करिए कि अच्छा ये तो ब्रह्मा का क्रिएशन है. ऑल राइट. सो 10, 18, 24, 28, 30, 30, 28, it comes like that. All right. We have just assumed it. And that means marginal utility will be 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0, and minus 2. As I consumed the first unit, the addition to satisfaction was 10. When I consumed the second unit, only the second, the satisfaction addition was 8. And third unit, it was 6. Fourth unit, 4. Fifth unit, 2. Sixth, 0. and seventh minus 2. What does a minus 2 signify? Dissatisfaction. What does 0 signify? Complete satisfaction. You understand that? That when I reach my maximum satisfaction, my marginal utility becomes 0. And when I start getting dissatisfied, my total utility starts falling. Then my marginal utility becomes negative. And based on this, Marshall said that you can take quantity and you can take total utility and you can draw a total utility curve like this, where this can be the sixth unit, and you can take those numbers again, quantity and marginal utility, and the marginal utility curve can be like this. All right? So that was his idea of total utility and marginal utility. That initially total utility will rise, but it will rise at a decreasing rate. Decreasing rate means every next unit adds something to total utility, but adds lesser than the previous unit. All right? हर अगला यूनिट टोटल यूटिलिटी में वो बढ़ा रहा है, लेकिन पिछले यूनिट के मुकाबले कम बढ़ा पा रहा है. So every next unit adds something to the total utility, but adds lesser than the previous unit. That is why total utility is increasing at a decreasing rate, and marginal utility is falling, but it is positive because it is adding something to total utility. All right? When the consumer has consumed the sixth unit, at that point total utility is maximum and marginal utility is 0. And after sixth unit, the satisfaction falls, becomes negative. So now total utility is falling and marginal utility becomes negative. So that was his relation of total utility and marginal utility. Do I believe you understand that? Okay. I'm just making you write it still. So you write below this diagram. Yes, yes. How? By not making it join the axis. All right. Imagine if you use your mathematical concepts, think, what do we mean by this gap? This gap can be like this. Sometimes you'll see drawn like this. You know why? This is infinitely close to y-axis but not touching the y-axis. So the limit y-axis in the infinite neighborhood will be 0. All right, that is the idea here. All right, yes, yes. Okay, more is always better is an assumption of ordinal utility. All right, they used to believe more is better, local non-satiation. Marshall would not. All right. Okay, you write there, according to law of DMU, total utility increases at a decreasing rate, that is initially an increase in consumption will increase total utility, but each successive unit will contribute something lesser than the previous unit. Will contribute something lesser than the previous unit, full stop. Therefore, when total utility is rising, at a diminishing rate, then marginal utility is falling but remains positive. Marginal utility is falling but remains positive. Full stop. Change the paragraph. When total utility reaches maximum, it shows that consumer has acquired maximum satisfaction and there is no addition or subtraction to it by the extra commodity consumed. There is no addition or subtraction to it by the extra commodity consumed. Full stop. Therefore, when total utility is maximum, marginal utility is zero. And then you write, after this point of consumption, any further increase in units consumed will result in marginal utility becoming negative, and total utility beginning to fall. You know, these are very innocuous things, but believe me, when they ask you this suddenly as a 10 marker in the paper, they start creating problem that how do I present it in the examination. All right. So my purpose of dictating all this to you is to teach you that, okay, when you see something innocuous, how should you present it? लिख के कैसे दिखाओगे examiner को? अगर कभी लगता है और words लिखने हैं, तो ये tables explain करने शुरू कर दो. All right, start explaining it, that as seen till 6th unit, at 6th unit, after 6th unit. So you will create another 20, 30 words out of that. In micro, whenever you need more words, create tables or graphs and explain them. In macro, whenever you need more words, start using an example. All right, that should always be kept in mind, because there is a possibility sometimes you might have read something for say 50, 60 words and 70 words, and they might ask you a question for 150 words on that. So how do we create an answer is what I'm telling you, that in those circumstances, at micro, always believe in setting up a graph or numbers and explain them. Macro, examples and put them across. All right, I'll teach you that. Like, as I told you, use this table and give an example. You change the paragraph again and write, Marshall used the law of DMU to provide his theories on consumer equilibrium, and use that theory to derive Marshallian demand curve. Now, sometimes in your exam, they have asked it once in the past year papers to derive Marshallian demand curve. I'll take you into that. But first, we will talk about consumers' equilibrium in case of Marshall when there is only one commodity in the market and then when there are multiple commodities in the market. And then we will think about deriving the demand curve. All right. But I'm just introducing you to this idea now that what was Marshall's take about, so you give a heading, consumers' equilibrium in cardinal utility theory if the consumer consumes only one commodity. Okay, let's see this. Think. As we discussed, we take marginal utility of money as constant, and we have taken marginal utility of commodity, this X is commodity. So we have taken marginal utility of commodity as diminishing. Marshall was a classical economist. He assumed price to be constant, assuming it to be a perfect competition. Of course, he did not mention it, but that was the implicit assumption. All right, ये implicit assumption था. मार्शल ने कहा नहीं इस बात को, but वो मानते थे कि price जो है वो constant रहेगा, unless not changed by external factors. All right, so if the producers choose to change the price, it's different. Otherwise, the market will always see a constant price. So he assumed price to be constant, MUM to be constant, MUX will be diminishing in nature. Now think, suppose we talk about a situation. Suppose I say MUX is 6 utils. Marginal utility of the commodity at any point of time, say from the first unit or the second unit, किसी एक unit से marginal utility commodity की 6 utils है. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? That unit gives satisfaction worth 6 utils. Okay. If suppose I say that MUM is 2 utils, all right, that means 1 rupee gives me satisfaction worth 2 utils. Now think, this is 6 utils per unit. This unit can be kg, liter, meter, whatsoever. And this is 2 utils per rupee, right? I'm using rupee. आपको डॉलर अच्छा लगता है, आप डॉलर यूज कर लें. मुझे कोई आपत्ति नहीं है. All right, but money as a term. Now think, if I take a ratio of the two, I will get 3 rupees per unit. You understand that? So given, I'm saying something very obvious, but I'm trying to explicitly say this to you. Given marginal utility of money is 2 utils, and given I derive satisfaction worth 6 utils from the commodity's last unit, that means my willingness to pay for that last unit will be 3 rupees for that per unit. Alright? अगर मुझे 6 util का satisfaction मिलता है और पैसा मुझे 2 util का satisfaction देता है, so 1 rupee is equal to 2 utils. And that will mean 6 utils will be equal to 3 rupees. So if the consumer is asked, how much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to pay for this unit of the commodity? The consumer will say 3 rupees. Do I believe you are okay on that? Now think, if I say that I have quantity consumed as say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And suppose I have marginal utility of this commodity X, say this is X, as undefined and 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. And suppose I am assuming that the price of each unit is 2. And suppose I have also assumed that marginal utility of money is 2. All right. Now, if I take the ratio MUX upon MUM, I will get dash. And now think, MUX is 10 and MUM is 2. So that ratio will give me 5. You know what this 5 is? My willingness to pay for the first unit. अगर आपसे कोई बोलते हैं कि आपका satisfaction 10 util है और आपको 1 rupee से 2 util का satisfaction मिलता है, तो 10 util के लिए कितना पैसा देने को तैयार रहोगे? 5? समझ रहे हैं? That if my satisfaction from 1 rupee is 2 utils, this MUM is equal to 2 means what? 1 rupee is equal to 2 utils. So if my satisfaction from 1 rupee is 2 utils and I am getting satisfaction worth 10 utils, then how many rupee will I be willing to pay for it? 5, isn't it? So that is one thing. Similarly, so that is what MUX by MUM shows. My willingness to pay given my satisfaction from the commodity and given my satisfaction from money. You understand that? In case somebody asks us, why are you taking this ratio? What does it show? It shows my willingness to pay. That is why when you draw the demand curve, your teachers would always tell you that it doesn't show the actual amount paid, it shows the willingness to pay. And that is why we find consumer surplus as area below the demand curve. तो वो willingness to pay की कहानी सुना रहा हूँ. क्यों उसे बोलते हैं willingness to pay? वो इधर से लेते हैं हम लोग. Alright, that is my willingness to pay. Similarly, for the second unit, this can be 4, 8 by 2. Third unit, it can be 3. Fourth unit, it can be 2. And fifth unit, it is 1. मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? 10 divided by 2, 8 divided by 2, 6 divided by 2, 4 divided by 2, and 2 divided by 2. All right, that is what I am doing. All right, that at each unit, I am dividing the marginal utility by marginal utility of money. Now think, for first unit, my willingness to pay is 5 rupees. What is the market asking me for? 2 rupees, will I buy or not? I am happy, I'll buy it. Second unit, willingness to pay is 4 utils. Rupees, market is asking for 2, I will definitely buy it. Third unit, willingness to pay is 3 rupees. Market is asking for 2 rupees, I will buy it. Fourth unit, willingness to pay 2 rupees. Market is asking for 2 rupees. They are equal. I am indifferent between buying or not buying. But till fourth unit, I am gaining. So I'll buy the fourth unit. Because once I buy the fourth unit, consume it, I realize, okay, my satisfaction is neither rising nor falling. Fifth unit, willingness to pay 1 rupee. Market is asking for 2 rupees. I am definitely not going to buy this. So where will I reach my equilibrium? Fourth unit. What's happening there? My willingness to pay MUX by MUM is equal to PX. Do I believe you get the hang of it? I'm sure you do. So I'm not giving you the write-up at the moment. We will again revise all this to understand what Marshall did. Mainly I want you to internalize the theory of willingness to pay. तो अभी मैंने आपको ये introduce किया, एक बार समझाया है. I've just introduced once to you. Tomorrow we will again begin with this. Talk about how we reach equilibrium, talk about law of equimarginal utility, derive Marshall's demand curve, and criticize Marshall's theory after that. All right, that is what we will mainly focus upon. Yes, yes. No, this is assumption. Brahma. I could have made it 10, 9, 7. I could have made it 10, 6, 3, 4, 2, anything. It should be decreasing. That's all. All right. No. Oh, yes. So you mean the continuous divisibility, like 100% divisible. Yeah. Because otherwise we can't make smooth graphs. All right. If we are making a smooth graph with no discontinuity, it means I'm assuming that the 100th fraction is also defined. Yes. I will be explaining consumer's equilibrium, Tanvi, as I begin it tomorrow, because that is where we will begin from. That willingness to pay equal to the amount paid. You can include concepts of behavioral economics, but not in this. Behavioral economics happened much later, actually. No, this theory has these names only, Resham. I'm answering your question. एयर इंडिया कैटेगरी ए में हो गया था. कैटेगरी बी के एग्जाम्पल थे जिस जैसे स्टील बोला मैंने, या जैसे जैसे कैटेगरी बी में एग्जाम्पल्स थे एल्यूमिनियम. नहीं, कैटेगरी बी था कि जिसमें जो प्राइवेट है उसे गवर्नमेंट टेक ओवर नहीं करेगी. हाँ, आगे प्राइवेट इन्वेस्ट करने अलाउड नहीं होगा. हाँ हाँ. आई जस्ट टेक 1 second. Thank you, Divyanshi. Thank you, Chanchal. Thank you, Amit. Okay, so people online, I see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock again. Thank you.